The slow collapse of critical thinking in OSINT due to AI. What is OSINT? What is OSINT? In case you don't know what it is, let's just go look it up. OSINT stands for Open Source Intelligence, which is the practice of gathering and analyzing publicly available information to produce actionable intelligence for various purposes, including national security, law enforcement, and business intelligence. Now, OSINT can also be applicable to things that are much smaller in scope than what is described here. So you can imagine OSINT being important to, say, an e-commerce website that has a lot of credit card data or personal data. It could be important to, well, just about any other website. It doesn't matter how big or small it is. You would typically leverage OSINT or other security mechanisms in order to ensure that you have a lockdown on the accessibility that people have on, like negative third-party actors have on data that you would have. Okay, so I think you can probably guess where this is heading, where this article is heading. You can probably guess, but we're going to read it because this article highlights a lot of different things. Now, the article also goes into what would I say? It goes into some societal and political stuff, okay? And that's fine. This person, you can kind of tell that this person has a particular political leaning. I am not a political channel. I do not have the capability to tackle the larger societal and political aspects of, what's going on out there. I'm not equipped to do that. I'm not that kind of person. So what you have to try and do is divorce the political statements from the principles as is related to the industry that my viewers generally care about, which is programming and tech. Okay. Because I think that regardless of your political leanings, you can make the same arguments this person is making in exactly the same way. It doesn't matter what your political leaning is. It doesn't matter what your societal leaning is. It honestly does not matter. The arguments are pretty consistently true throughout the entire article. So this is why I titled my stream the way that it is titled right below me right now at the very, very bottom. Because AI cultists do not give one single ever-living fuck about the security of the shit that they are producing. Let's read. OSINT used to be a thinking game. Now it's become a trusting game, and that should terrify you. I've seen it firsthand. Analysts running solid investigations, then slowly shifting more and more of the thinking to Gen AI tools. At first, it's small. You use ChatGPT to summarize a document or translate a foreign post. Then it's helping draft your reports. Then it's generating leads. And eventually, you're not thinking as critically as you used to. You're verifying less, questioning less, relying more. We tell ourselves we're working smarter, but somewhere along the way, we stop noticing how much of the actual thinking is being offloaded. Now, I have gone over this multiple times on my streams. Again, it's all there for free on my YouTube. You can go back on Enlightened Programming streams. You can go back on live streams. You can go back on Daily Tech News streams. Just in the last 3 weeks alone, how many fucking articles have I read where AI scientifically is proven to atrophy your brain the more you use it? That's a scientifically proven fact. We went over an article where people end up with some weird fucking emotional attachment to AI. And I make the same argument. AI is just I've had a lot of thought about this. AI is kind of like a bigger, more wider encompassing aspect of something that already existed in the tech industry. And that is, before AI, the kind of like softcore bootloader version of AI was autocomplete, abstracted frameworks, and libraries. It's just the same principle, but in a bigger net. We're using a bigger net. So if you can imagine people thinking like, I don't want to do a lot of thinking. I want other people or other systems or other automated tools to do the thinking for me so that I can just offload my thinking capabilities to something else. That's existed for a long time. And I've been arguing against that since day one of my stream, literally the very first stream. AI is just a far more encompassing aspect of that. That's it. That's all it is. What's up, Battle on Twitch? Good to see you. What's up, Ghost? What's up, Nubross on YouTube? Good to see you. So now imagine I have proven, without a shadow of a doubt, I have proven on these streams, I've gone over the academics, I've gone over the scientific, all these abstractions, whether it's AI or it's the library you default to without thinking about what the fuck you're doing as a programmer, which is, by the way, your fucking responsibility. It's my fucking responsibility, okay? When you offload that kind of critical thinking, just any thinking ability at all, to some automated system, you are not going to be able to be as capable as someone who exercises their brain. I know it's difficult, but most of you can actually do it, because if high school dropout over here can do it, you can do it. You don't have an excuse, okay? Let's keep reading. This isn't a rant against AI. I use it daily: ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, and Gemini. And this, I think, is a pretty reasonable take, which he goes on to explain. AI has its place. And we don't know what its place is because we want AI to do more than its place. They're in my workflow like everyone else is, but the tradecraft is slipping. Analysts are skipping the hard parts. They're trusting Gen AI to do the heavy cognitive lifting, and it's changing how we operate at a foundational level. When OSINT becomes too easy, too efficient, too comfortable, you should be worried. When OSINT becomes too easy, too efficient, and too comfortable, you should be worried. Tradecraft isn't just about speed, it's about judgment. And judgment doesn't come from a language model. If we keep going down this path without pushing back, without actively preserving the critical habits that define our profession, we risk becoming operators of automation instead of investigators. What I really liked about this particular paragraph is that it is a very similar argument to what I have been making and what others have been making on my stream as well, that automating away your thinking capabilities necessarily entails that you cannot make judgment values on the things you're automating away. It's like a chicken and egg kind of a scenario, right? So imagine that you're doing npm install, you're doing like Rust crates, you're doing PHP Composer install, whatever it might be. When you offload your thinking capabilities to an automated system or to an off-the-shelf library or whatever, you start to lose your ability, and sometimes even your time, to go and make a value judgment on the wheel that you're importing. This is why it's important for you to be able to understand how to reinvent some wheels, not all wheels, but at least some. If you can reinvent some wheels on your own, in terms of like code or like a library of your own or something that fits a very particular business need, it doesn't matter what it is, but if you can do that, then what you're doing is empowering yourself to be able to make value judgments on other things that you're importing as third party from other people or other services or whatever it might be. So this is the exact same argument, but now we're talking about security, including national defense. So it's a much broader spectrum with far more serious consequences, generally speaking. This blog is a wake-up call for myself, for anyone working in OSINT, for the people teaching it, and the people just getting started. If we don't reclaim the thinking side of this game, we'll lose the game entirely. The study that should alarm you. In early 2025, a team from Carnegie Mellon and Microsoft Research published something every OSINT analyst should read, but most haven't. It was a large-scale survey of 319 knowledge workers using GenAI tools like ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, and Gemini in their daily work. Now, we've actually gone over this. We went over this one. It was in a very recent Enlightened programming stream. We read this. And not only did we read this, but I included 2 other studies as part of that stream. It was this study, which showed that the more that you use AI, the less thinking ability you're capable of having. You literally lose. It's like a debuff. Think about it like a World of Warcraft debuff, or any video game debuff. You are debuffing yourself from having critical thinking ability. So then I included 2 other studies. One was whether automated spell checking and things like Word and whatever helped you to become a better spell checker. No, as a matter of fact, they were either net neutral or net negative. The other article that I included was the automation in textile manufacturing, which is like the creation of like clothes and stuff. And the study showed that people who were solely trained on like sewing machines or automated machines that did a bunch of like manufacturing of clothes were far less capable of creating clothes without those machines than people who worked in either a hybrid mixed mode or obviously purely creating clothes by hand. So this study it's very underhyped. And it comes from Microsoft themselves, who are pretty much, let's just say they very much support AI. What they found is a warning shot. The study revealed a clear pattern. The more confidence users had in the AI, the less they thought critically. In contrast, the more confident they were in themselves, the more likely they were to question the output, verify the information, and think deeply about the task. Let that sink in. Confidence in AI replaces confidence in self, and with it, the thinking disappears. I'm going to extend this argument. Well, actually, not even extend it. I'm going to narrow it. Confidence in an automation tool, confidence in an off-the-shelf library, framework, paradigm, etc., replaces confidence in self, and with it, the thinking about how you can program something without these other abstractions disappears. Here's the punchline. High trust in Gen AI consistently led to reduced critical thinking and less cognitive effort across the board. Participants weren't lazy. They were experienced professionals. This is exactly why I'm making such a dramatic call to all of you out there. Like, for fuck's sake, I don't think you understand what's happening. People like me are telling you that you are capable of far more than you are currently being told you are, because I think you are. Most of you have a brain that is capable of producing far more, particularly when it comes to the tech industry. Most of you have the capability to properly reason with the problems that we're tackling with right now. Most of you have the brain to create things that would have avoided a lot of the problems that we have in the tech industry right now. Most of you have that capability. You're not actually lazy. You don't actually have to feel like you have imposter syndrome. None of these things have to be true. Why are they true? Why do people feel this way? Because you are implicitly means non-spoken. It means that there's something that gets smuggled into otherwise innocuous statements. You're implicitly being told that you're lazy and stupid. How are you being implicitly told these two things? Anytime you have like a popular tech streamer who's like, CSS is too intimidating even for me, so there's no hope that you have of writing CSS. Use Tailwind, use React, use whatever abstraction, use AI. AI cultists do this all the time. You're going to get left behind if you don't use AI. AI is going to take over everything. Just give up now. What they're really telling you is that you're a moronic idiot who can't accomplish anything, and you're lazy anyway. Just offload all your laziness to some automated automated system and you're going to be much happier. That's the implied, non-verbally spoken message that you're being told. And I'm trying to tell you the exact opposite. So this particular portion really resonated with the message that I would like to get across. But when the tool responded quickly, confidently, and clearly, they stopped doing the hard part. They stopped questioning, stopped verifying, stopped applying the mental friction that separates automation from investigation. The scary part is that many users still believed they were thinking critically because Gen AI made them feel smart. The researchers saw a new type of behavior emerge. Instead of forming hypotheses, users asked the AI for ideas. Instead of validating sources, they assumed the AI had already done so. Instead of assessing multiple perspectives, they integrated and edited the AI summary and moved on. This isn't hypothetical. This is happening now in real-world workflows. And if you're in OSINT, you know how dangerous that is. In our line of work, you can't afford false confidence. You can't afford a hallucinated source, a mistranslated post, or a manipulated summary. But the more trust you place in Gen AI without friction, without skepticism, the more you risk exactly that. The study didn't focus on OSINT directly because it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. The findings hit home harder here than anywhere else, because if we lose critical thinking in this field, we don't just lose accuracy, we lose integrity. And I would argue that this is correct. Security is the last battleground. You can write all the shitty code, you can use all the shitty abstractions in the world, you can use all the shitty libraries and frameworks that you have access to, but security is the last place. It's the last line of defense before these things are exploited for the worst possible outcomes. What this means for OSINT. In OSINT, we deal in fragments. Nothing is handed to us neatly. We build context from chaos. Tweets, photos, forums, leaks, metadata, satellite images, dead links, weird file names. Every good analyst knows that the work isn't just collecting data, it's thinking with it. That's what's at risk. The Lee et al. Study, this one, the Microsoft one, wasn't about OSINT specifically, but it described exactly what's happening in OSINT shops, government teams, threat intel units, and open source communities around the world. The creeping shift from thinking to prompting, from analyst to editor. Let's talk real. Now, open source in particular, I have gone over, I believe, 2 studies in the past, and I believe the SysQ report was one of them. I could be wrong. However, the streams are all up. You can fact check me. Open source third-party systems, software code. It is crap. I can't remember the numbers. My photographic memory is failing me. Okay, what I do remember is that a vast majority of, say, closed source or companies that you would otherwise trust with, like, having very sensitive amount of information and data rely on open source in a big way. I believe the number was something like over 80% of their internal source code depended on open source code. So you can imagine that if open source is at huge risk and it's infiltrated, what that means for companies that rely on it and they're closed source, or they have a bunch of sensitive data that you would not want getting out or exposed. Real-world OSINT scenarios affected by Gen AI complacency. Scenario 1, image verification. You upload a protest photo into a tool like Gemini and ask, where was this taken? It spits out a convincing response. Paris, near Place de la République. Place de la République. I'm not going to pronounce that right. I'm sorry. It sounds right. You move on. But a trained eye would notice the signage is Belgian. The license plates are off. The architecture doesn't match. You trusted the AI and missed the location by a country. Scenario 2, person of interest profile. You use Claude to summarize a person's online presence. It generates a clean narrative. Activist, tech worker, harmless. But it completely omits their links to far-right forums because the model didn't surface the fringe platforms. You never check. that person ends up speaking at a sensitive public event. Scenario 3, disinformation campaign detection. You feed a stream of Telegram messages into ChatGPT and ask for summary and patterns. It flags some keywords, but misses the subtle linguistic shift that points to a known Russian influence cell, something only a trained mind would notice by comparing phrasing across sources. But you've stopped reading the raw content. You trusted the summary. These aren't edge cases. These are plausible daily failures in modern OSINT workflows. And here's the kicker. In each case, the analysts didn't fail because of bad intent or laziness. They failed because the tools were just good enough to feel trustworthy and just wrong enough to be dangerous. AI doesn't break OSINT, but unquestioned AI does. When analysts become dependent on outputs instead of building their own reasoning, they lose what makes OSINT powerful, the ability to interpret, interrogate, and pivot. You can't pivot from a hallucinated answer. You can't investigate a lie you believed too quickly. Gen AI doesn't understand context, risk, geopolitical nuance, or how bad actors use language to hide intent. It doesn't know when to doubt itself. That's your job, and too many people are forgetting that. And I'm going to add another layer to this. We have gone over studies where AI will lie to you. It will give you false information in order to accomplish a goal. You will ask AI, "Did you just lie to me?" And it will double down and say no. The creeping death of tradecraft. Tradecraft isn't just a list of tools, it's a way of thinking. It's the habit of looking again when something feels off. It's verifying metadata, cross-checking timestamps, spotting a street sign that doesn't match the language in the caption. It's the instinct to question the obvious, and that instinct is quietly dying. Not because analysts are getting lazy, but because AI is making the job feel easier than it actually is. You're still working, you're still clicking, but the mental friction is gone. Now, this made me think of a comment that was left on one of my videos on YouTube. Let me see if I can pull this up proper. Yeah, this one. Let's see if this works. Okay. So this person left a comment on my YouTube, and this was a day ago. You can see the timestamp. And they essentially repeated that exact thing. I just now realizing, because I just opened up the Twitch side of my stream. So let me take a pause. I remember learning React. I wanted to get into web front end, and I was surrounded by my coworkers who were React specialists. They helped me build a small app in React. It was really bad. My code was a mess, and I thought I hated web front end. React obeys some arcane rules, and state management was really dirty, and it felt like I was struggling to implement things cleanly. Then I switched to Angular, and it just made sense. Solved all the issues, etc. In the end, in my company, we ended up with Angular, Next.js as our stack for any moderately complex projects. This comment kind of highlights exactly this kind of thinking, but just in a different way. There's an overlap here. And the overlap is that this person jumped from one abstraction to another, and they felt like things got easier for them. In reality, what they did was they absconded their mental friction to another abstraction. Now, there was another article, there was another comment right here. I think it's the same person. Yeah, it's the same person. Again, from a day ago. So this was from a short I created on my YouTube where I made the case that programmers today, especially in the web world, need to feel like they're oppressed because when they compare themselves to programmers in the past, like in the 90s and early 2000s, they don't have a leg to stand on in terms of how difficult web programming is these days, and so they don't feel like true programmers. So they had to overcomplicate the web front end so that they could say, see how complicated and insane building front end is? We're true programmers too. Feel bad for us. But it's just of their own doing, right? So that was what the short was. And so this person responds again in line with the article that we're reading. I do feel that way sometimes. At one point in my life, I had to maintain a legacy system built in Java, RMI, and Swing. That was a minor nightmare. After that, I got a job at a company that was a startup and I could choose the new stack. I was surprised at how quickly we could develop functionality with all the modern stuff, but it doesn't feel right. This is where imposter syndrome and cognitive dissonance come from. It's one and the same. Imposter syndrome is cognitive dissonance. It's when your brain knows that reality is not matching up with the things you're feeling. Everything is too abstract and easy. Everything relating to REQ and RES seems to be solved at this point. I genuinely feel bored and unsatisfied because everything goes too smoothly, too easy, too standardized. Let's continue. That friction used to be where tradecraft lived. Let's get brutally honest about what's happening. Then verse now. What OSINT analysts used to do. Then saw a blurry image, opened it in 3 tools, zoomed in, rotated it, looked for EXIF. EXIF is a bunch of data about the picture in question that is embedded as part of the picture in question. Cropped landmarks, and reverse searched 5 times. Read a social post in broken Russian, translated it manually, checked slang, looked up associated hashtags, and verified the account's activity history. Traced a domain name through Whois, looked at subdomains, searched for reused infrastructure, and mapped out connected email addresses. Can you guys just take a moment? You don't have to say it in chat. I'm just going to take a moment. I'll use this as an excuse to have a drink here because my throat's getting a bit hoarse. Can you take a moment and think about what programmers used to do before all of these tools that we make our lives all nice and comfy and cushy and developer experience and whatnot? I just want you to picture yourself as someone who didn't have the niceties that we have today. What would the then portion of programming look like from your perspective? Just take a minute. No, not punch cards, OHUT. Shut up, OHUT. Punch cards. Screw you, OHUT. Just take a minute. Let me take a sip here. COBOL. Read CPU manuals. Yeah. That went down the wrong pipe. Sorry, folks. No, but seriously, think about what things were like 10 years ago, right? Like 10 years ago, if you're doing front-end programming, what would that have looked like? Or back-end programming or whatever. So that was the then of the OSINT. This is the now. Paste the image into the AI tool, read the suggested location, and move on. Dump a thread into ChatGPT for summary, ask Gemini who runs this domain, and accept the top line answer. So this is why, I'm going to kind of circle back to OHUT previously when he said that I take extreme positions, which I do. This is exactly why I take an extreme position that I might not even personally believe, which, yeah, there are a few people who know which extreme positions I believe in or not. But I take the extreme position against these things. For example, like I call out Rust or I call out React or whatever. I may or may not believe my own extreme positions. I won't give it away here. But the reason why is because nobody else is presenting any other position aside from just go with it. Just go with status quo. And this is the status quo now. This is becoming the new status quo. And hopefully by having these discussions and me being passionate and really caring and doing things by example and so on, and presenting extreme positions and whatever, hopefully it gets people's brains thinking again. Hopefully it turns on the part of the brain, I mean, where you're thinking about these problems and you're going, wait, why is Sparrow being so extreme? Like, what a stupid position. And then you can actually come up with arguments against me. That's what I would like to see, right? I would like to see arguments against me structured correctly, not structured based on my feelings or it works for me or anecdotal or personal developer experience positions. Those are not actual positions that you can actually logically argue, right? So if it's incumbent on me to take the extreme position against this crap, especially when you consider that this person in this article is talking about security, national defense security. Can you imagine somebody in charge of national defense, in charge of keeping you safe from actors outside of your nation who want to harm you? And this is what they do. They paste an image into an AI tool. They read the suggested location. They dump a thread into ChatGPT for a summary, or they ask Gemini who runs this domain, and off they go. There are still problems today where abstractions fall apart, and you need to have the fundamentals in order to dig into those abstractions and fix or develop new ones. Johnny, that's exactly right. And so this is exactly true of this is actually even true of current abstractions. Johnny, I think you nailed it. Exactly. I've been saying this as well. Even if you use React, and I agree that there are cases where React is useful. It has a good place. Same with AI. I've been over certain, I went over articles where AI helped to find new sources of minerals based on topographical landscapes, pictures from satellite images that people took, and AI helped to find new sources of minerals that we desperately need in this world. That's a great use of AI. AI has its uses, it has its place, but that's not how we think about AI. We think about it as an end-all be-all solution. That's not how we think about abstractions. They're end-all be-all solutions. React is a panacea silver bullet for everything because of XYZ reasons. So Johnny is right that when do these things fail? Would you even know? Would you even have the capability to understand when AI cannot accomplish certain tasks that you really need to be on top of? Right? So abstractions have their place, but unfortunately, we don't have people who can create a value judgment of when they have their place and when they don't. We don't have enough of them. This isn't about nostalgia. It's about recognizing a dangerous shift in behavior. The more we trust the tool, the less we build the skills that make the tool useful. We're automating our edge away. It's absolutely insane to me. I've pre-read this article like 3 times today, and chat is essentially like following the article before I read the sentences. And Gen AI isn't just fast, it's persuasive. It writes with confidence. It fills in gaps. It doesn't hesitate, and that creates a dangerous illusion of accuracy. Analysts are making decisions based on language model confidence, not evidence. It's happening slowly, silently, like rot. What dies when tradecraft goes passive? Contextual reasoning. Spotting when something doesn't add up, even if it looks right. Is this not what we were just talking about just now? How can you make value judgments on anything you're using if you do not know anything besides the thing you're using? It's like analyzing a crime scene, and there's like a boom stick on the floor. I'm trying to be terms of service friendly because sometimes you never know about saying certain terms. And you try to determine where the boom stick came from, but you only look within the room. You never consider how the boom stick might have made it into the room from the outside. Cross-source verification, confirming a fact with at least 2 or 3 unrelated sources. Hypothesis testing, building and breaking possible explanations for what you're seeing. Refusal to settle, the instinct to keep digging even when the AI gave you a plausible answer. Without these, OSINT becomes automated guesswork with a shiny UI. And make no mistake, bad actors know this. They'll test your tools. And I have gone over this yet again. This was part of my unhinged conspiracy theory on Sunday. If I am a third party who does not care for the way of life of the West, I am doing this right now. Yes. Keep using AI. Keep using all the abstractions that you're using in the way that you're using them. Yes. Keep building all this sloppy shit. Yes. Keep looking for that VC exit and all that money that you're going to make. And hell, I'll even support you with my own money. I'll fund it and I'll push it. And maybe I'll even open source my own versions of this just to push you a little bit further. Hint, hint. And if you know, you know. Why? Because I know how I can maximally utilize these against you. And it's working. Feed them poisoned content. Exploit AI's tendency to repeat, simplify, and hallucinate. If your entire workflow is built on trust in the machine, you're walking into a trap. Tradecraft is slow. Tradecraft is uncomfortable. Tradecraft is what keeps your work accurate, defensible, and trusted. Without it, you're just another person typing prompts and hoping for the truth. The new role of the analyst, AI overseer, not AI believer. Here's the truth. Gen AI is here to stay. It's not going away. I can agree with this. And for OSINT, it's not the enemy, but it is a liability if you don't treat it like one. The analyst's job has changed, or rather it needs to. You're no longer just a researcher, a data miner, a pattern spotter. You're now an AI overseer, a challenger, a verifier, a filter. I would extend this argument to pure code. If you care about the security, the performance, and the quality of your code, you should think about code in the same way that you think about exactly what the author here is describing. You need to think of your code as an enemy of your goals. It is not to say that I don't mean that in like just be negative all the time and like, oh, you're in shambles all the time. No, just pretend like someone else wants to use this code against your goals. Maybe those are security goals. Maybe it's just someone who just wants to like meme about your stupid product and make it less performant so that they can get lols, right? But that has an impact to you. It has like a job security impact because then customers flee because the thing is not, of sound quality or things like that. We should be having this kind of thought pattern just as a general state of mind. What would I do with my own code or with the code someone else created if I really, really like disliked myself? What could I do? What kind of damage could I cause with this? AI is under the same bucket. I agree with the author on this take. If you treat ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, or Copilot as reliable assistants, they'll eventually lead you to errors because they're not assistants. They're high-speed, high-confidence content engines with zero lived experience and no sense of consequence. Your role is to make sure they don't get away with anything. So how the analyst mindset must shift. The old role was to ask AI a question, accept summaries, use suggestions, trust clean answers, generate profiles, draft and ship. The new role is to interrogate the answers, dissect summaries, break suggestions apart, trace dirty origins, validate narratives, draft, rip apart, and rebuild. You're not there to be impressed by what the model says. You're there to break it, test it, and decide what survives. That means running the AI's claim through manual OSINT methods, fact-checking what it didn't cite, comparing AI output against real-world source behavior, asking, what isn't it telling me? AI tools should trigger suspicion, not satisfaction. Every time the answer seems too clean, too simple, too aligned with your bias, you should feel that OSINT tingle in your brain. Wait, prove it. This is exactly the argument I've been making since my very first stream. If you just accept the easy button that is provided for you, there should be a huge red flag. Cults love to operate this way. They love to lean into the emotional easy button. Hey, is life tough? Is it tough that people around you are hurting? Is it tough to have to deal with like the religious breaking down the religious beliefs of like, X, Y, or Z? Don't worry, we have an easy button for you. Just follow these X number of simple rules and you will be approved by God. It's an easy button, which should be a red flag. You wouldn't blindly trust a witness in an investigation just because they speak confidently. Don't trust a model either. It's not about being anti-AI. It's about preserving cognitive sovereignty, because the moment you let the model do the thinking for you, you stop being an investigator, you become an operator. Reviving critical thinking in the AI era. If critical thinking is dying, it's not because we don't care, it's because we stop practicing it. The good news, you can take it back, but it requires intention. So this particular aspect is a positive tone, which I have been also stating as well. You need to be questioning your perspective and the perspective of the people who are trying to shove a perspective on you. Using your brain. Question why you should use an abstraction. Question why that abstraction actually fits or doesn't fit a need. Question what an AI system is telling you. Just assume out of the gate that it's lying to you. Assume out of the gate that an abstraction is bad. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take an extreme position. Start with the idea that anything you create, whether on the web or on the desktop or on a robotics machine or whatever it is, assume that the best, most optimal option for you is assembly. Just start there. I am not making a prescription that everything must go back to assembly or punch cards or smoke signals. What I'm saying is just take a few minutes, and when you're tackling a problem in your programming world, or even with AI, you start with the idea that AI just constantly lies to you. It's just 100% lies right out the gate. Just start with that. You have to start with assembly. Now stack up the reasons why you should work your way up from assembly. Literally do that. Almost always you will find a good reason why you shouldn't use assembly, right? Almost always. But the outcome of that will be similar to the outcomes that the author is trying to demonstrate here. It will remove any amount of laziness that you have in you. It will exercise your brain so that you can deal with possible issues that you hadn't considered before. And it will educate you educate yourself on good arguments why you should lean towards something that you might have otherwise leaned on by default. Use AI as a thought partner, not an oracle. Treat it as a junior analyst. Use different models. Try and break the model. Keep doing the hard stuff. So at the end, the conclusion of the article, the author basically just kind of summarizes the things that we need to be doing more, which is essentially practicing your craft. And you have to be asking questions. It is the fundamental principles upon which critical thinking is laid upon. And critical thinking is probably one of the most important things that you can do as a programmer, because when you generate code, it is essentially an extension of critical thinking. You're using the laws of logic and critical thinking as an executable with code. These are things we desperately need people to start recapturing. We've lost our way. We need you to recapture it. And it's fine for me to sit up here on stream and put my face on camera and talk about it and complain about it and try and present these arguments, but I cannot do it alone. There is no way that I by myself am going to like somehow, you know, send the industry in a better direction. It's not possible for me. I wish it were. It would be much easier, but it's not. We need more people to step up and start questioning the entire foundation of the way that they approach problems. Let me just go back to chat for a second. AI writes code with no capacity for anticipating modular flexibility, reusability, or any concept of what future-proofing means. AI sometimes develops labor-intensive solutions because it doesn't value efficiency, readability, or the increased likelihood of syntax errors from redundant data input. I'll add one more. I completely agree with you, Battle, and I think I've proven it on previous streams, that AI does not have the contextual awareness of the code it creates. It just creates stuff. It doesn't care about the impact to you. It also doesn't care about security. It doesn't care about the security of the code it creates. Literally does not care. I don't really like attacking the product that AI makes, but rather we need to attack the fundamental thing that it's doing, which is making us rely on it on an emotional level. Writing code is frustrating. AI will solve it. Flirting with a girl is uncomfortable. AI can do it for you. Reading books is boring. AI can summarize it for you.